Imagine a city within a city, a walled-off prison where nearly 500,000 people are crammed into an area of just over 3 square kilometers. This was the Warsaw Ghetto, created by Nazi Germany and occupied Poland. Life here was a daily struggle for survival. Food was scarce, disease was rampant, and the constant threat of deportation hung over everyone's heads. The streets were filled with desperation, but also with a quiet, simmering resolve that would soon erupt into one of history's most profound acts of defiance. In the autumn of 1940, the walls went up. Hundreds of thousands of Jewish people from Warsaw and surrounding areas were forced from their homes and herded into this confined space. The conditions were deliberately brutal, designed to break the human spirit. Families were torn apart, and the basic dignities of life were stripped away. Every day, people died from starvation, typhus, or at the hands of the guards. Yet amidst this unimaginable suffering, life, in a fractured way, continued. Underground schools were organized, secret newspapers were printed, and religious services were held in hidden cellars. These were small but powerful acts of resistance, a refusal to let their culture and humanity be extinguished. By the summer of 1942, the true horror of the Nazi plan became terrifyingly clear. The so-called resettlement to the east began. In reality, this was the start of mass deportations to the Treblinka extermination camp. Day after day, trains packed with thousands of men, women, and children left the Umschlagplatz, the collection point for deportation. The ghetto's population plummeted. Initially, there was confusion and disbelief. The Nazis used deception, promising food and better living conditions to lure people onto the trains. But as news trickled back from escaped prisoners and Polish railway workers, the grim reality set in. There was no resettlement. There was only death. The illusion of survival through obedience was shattered. For the young people remaining in the ghetto, a new, agonizing question arose. How do you face certain death? Do you go passively, or do you fight back, even when victory is impossible? This was the moment the idea of armed resistance truly took root. Two main underground organizations emerged: the Jewish Combat Organization, or OB, led by the charismatic 23-year-old Mordecai Anilovich, and the Jewish Military Union, or ZW. These groups were made up of young people from various political backgrounds, united by a single, desperate goal: to resist. They were not soldiers. They were students, artists, and workers. Most had never held a weapon in their lives. Their task was monumental. How do you arm a resistance inside a sealed-off, heavily guarded ghetto? The answer was ingenuity and incredible bravery. It began smuggling weapons, a perilous endeavor. Pistols, grenades, and rifles were bought on the black market or smuggled in from the Polish underground. Piece by piece, hidden in sacks of potatoes, or carried by brave couriers through the city's sewers. The quantities were pitifully small. For every 10 fighters, there might be one pistol. They learned to make their own explosives, turning bottles and light bulbs into Molotov cocktails and homemade bombs. Their arsenal was a testament to their resourcefulness, but it was dwarfed by the military might of their enemy. What they lacked in firepower, however, they made up for in sheer determination. They chose to die on their own terms, fighting for Jewish honor and dignity. In January 1943, the Germans attempted another wave of deportations. This time, they were met with a surprise. As SS troops entered the ghetto, they were ambushed by Jewish fighters. The resistance was small and brief, but it had a stunning effect. For the first time, German soldiers were forced to retreat. The deportations were halted, albeit temporarily. This small victory was a massive psychological boost for the ghetto inhabitants. It proved that resistance was possible. The fighters became heroes, and the remaining population began to prepare. Bunkers and secret passages were constructed throughout the ghetto, creating a hidden network beneath the streets. The stage was set for the final confrontation. April 19, 1943, it was the eve of Passover, the Jewish Festival of Freedom. Under the command of SS General Jürgen Stroop, more than 2,000 heavily armed German soldiers, supported by tanks and artillery, marched into the Warsaw Ghetto to liquidate it once and for all. They expected the operation to last 3 days. They were wrong. As the German columns advanced, they were met with a hail of gunfire, grenades, and Molotov cocktails from windows, rooftops, and hidden alleyways. The few hundred Jewish fighters, using guerrilla tactics, turned the ghetto into a deadly labyrinth. They knew every corner, every basement, every sewer entrance. The first days of the uprising were a shock to the Germans. They sustained casualties and were forced to fight for every building. The fighters moved through secret passages, striking and then disappearing into their underground network of bunkers. One of the most iconic moments was when they raised two flags over a building on Marinovsky Square, the red and white flag of Poland and the blue and white flag of the Jewish resistance. It was a powerful declaration to the world that they were fighting not just for their own lives, but for their identity and their nation. The sight of these flags, visible from outside the ghetto walls, was an act of defiance that infuriated the Nazi command. But the odds were insurmountable. Faced with such fierce resistance, Stroop changed his tactics. He ordered his troops to systematically burn the ghetto to the ground, block by block. The fires raged, turning the sky black with smoke. The heat was intense, and the air became unbreathable. The bunkers, once a source of safety, became suffocating death traps. The fighters were forced out into the open, driven by flames and smoke. The fighting became even more desperate, a brutal house-to-house, bunker-to-bunker struggle. Communication between resistance groups broke down. Ammunition and food ran out. Yet even in these final apocalyptic days, the spirit of resistance did not die. There are countless stories of incredible courage. Fighters who used their last bullets to take one more enemy with them. Civilians who refused to surrender, choosing to perish in the flames rather than be captured. On May 8th, the command bunker of the GOB at Mua 18 was discovered and surrounded by the Germans. Rather than surrender, Mordecai Anilovich and many of his fellow commanders took their own lives. It was their final act of defiance, denying the enemy the satisfaction of capture. On May 16th, Jürgen Stroop declared the uprising over. To mark his victory, he ordered the magnificent Great Synagogue of Warsaw, which stood outside the ghetto walls, to be blown up. In his final report, he wrote with chilling pride, "The former Jewish quarter of Warsaw is no more. He believed he had erased it. But he was wrong." The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising was not a military victory, and the fighters knew it never would be. It was a moral victory. It was a testament to the fact that even in the face of absolute evil and certain death, the human spirit can choose to fight for dignity. For nearly a month, a small, poorly armed group of Jewish men and women had held off the might of the German war machine. They fought longer than some entire countries had resisted the Nazi invasion. Their struggle became a legend, a symbol of courage that resonated throughout occupied Europe and beyond. The Warsaw Ghetto Uprising is remembered as the largest and most significant act of Jewish resistance during the Holocaust. It shattered the myth of Jewish passivity and inspired other uprisings in ghettos and extermination camps. It proved that the spirit could not be imprisoned, even when the body was. The legacy of those who fought and died in Warsaw is a powerful reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is a choice. The choice to resist, to fight for honor, and to leave a message for the future. A message of courage against all odds. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, please like, share, and subscribe for more content that explores the depths of human history. Support helps us continue to tell these important stories.